Mr. Crow 999 here, and welcome back to the Nest. In today's video, I'm going to talk about what I'm expecting to be in Final Fantasy 16, as well as things I'm going to be trying in-game. This is going to be my first FF16 video, but it won't be the last. It should be noted I've watched all of the released trailers way too many times in the state of play at least a dozen times. I'm quite excited for the game, so I've got some things I think will be in the game, or that I'm going to try. Any spoilers for the game are based on what we've seen in trailers and mentioned in Game Informer articles. There's a spoiler warning in effect for the video, but I will do what I can to limit the spoilers as much as I can. Number 1. Lots of icon action. We've seen plenty of trailer action with different icon battles to give us a taste, but I suspect there will be more of them, and they will have some absolutely amazing set pieces attached to them. I suspect Titan Lost will end up being a memorable set piece, but it won't be the most memorable set piece in the game. I'm going to guess that we're going to see our buddy Ifrit quite a few times in the game, and he's going to be a wild beast to control. I'm also thinking some of the Bahamut and Odin battles are going to be absolutely spectacular. And I'm going to leave space here that something we haven't seen yet is going to be the set piece that is game defining. Number 2, challenge runs. Game Informer letting us know that Ultimaniac mode will have trial runs that you can use one icon for is really cool. One thing that will likely come from that on a larger scale will be specific icon challenge runs. I am planning on trying this out after I see what the battle system feels like, and I've done my initial story playthrough. To me, the most obvious one is the Phoenix Challenge run, that by the looks of it you can start right away and not have to invent any rules to make it be doable. I'm excited to see how purposely narrowing down the scope of the battle system plays out, and how enemies have natural built-in counters to the different icon abilities. And similarly, how the icon abilities work to counter the mobs of enemies as well. Number 3. Consequences. Actions in the game from a story perspective are going to have consequences. I'm fully expecting multiple main character deaths, injuries, and things like that. I also expect that what we have seen is only a setup for a larger consequence as a whole for the world. CBU 3 is great at showing a lot of cool stuff, but not saying a lot in terms of story leaks. The Endwalker trailers feel very similar to the ones for FF16, and I suspect a very similar approach is being used here. I also expect the characters to grow as people as well. And this segues well into number 4, character arcs. I think that most of the main characters are going to have their own personal arcs, but several of them will have that arc tied into the growth of another character. The likeliest example of this is Clive and Jill. They are going to grow because of each other, and those changes are going to greatly influence why they do the things they do. They will likely be the characters we spend the most time with overall, along with Sid. Each dominant will likely have their own arc, but I think some will be less prominent than the others. If I had to prioritize from the ones who will get the most time spent on their development, that we as the players get to see, to the least, it would be in this order. From most to least. Clive, Jill, Sid, Barnabas, Dion, Hugo, Benedicta, Joshua. Clive makes sense with the most, since we play as him, and him having a weak arc would be a negative on the player experience. We want to play a story that we see the person we play as grow and change. We don't want to play as someone who is flat and doesn't go anywhere. Joshua makes some sense last, since it is heavily implied in what we've been shown between trailers and gameplay showcases that he won't be very present in the story other than as a motivating factor for Clive. While that will probably be important, it isn't his own personal arc that's changing. Number 5. Hunts. I suspect hunts will be a sizable chunk of the side questing, but not all of it. And the fights here will present some very interesting challenges. This is also the area that could contain the most fan service in terms of series regular creatures with a Valistaean twist. We've seen a bit of that with the Araman hunt shown in the State of Play, but it's a prime opportunity for Tonberries and alternate behemoths coloring like the Behemoth King. More Morbull strains. Looks like we've seen the Morbull and the Great Morbull, but maybe we get another one. Bigger goblins, and essentially all of the cool legacy monsters that could fit with the Valistaean aesthetic, but may seem a bit strange as well. Number 6. The plot and setting. This is purely speculative, but a big plot point or setting for the game will have a relation to the moon. In most trailers and cutscenes at night, it has a presence. It isn't always the focal point, but it's there. It's like it's the foreshadowing that's coming without really hammering that point home. It's just there, like your own shadow. It is also quite clear that the crystals play a prominent role. One of the games that has inspired FF16 was FF5, according to the developers, and I've been trying to figure out where that applies, and I think I've landed on 2 things. One is combat related, the other is plot related. The plot related I'll talk about here is the destruction of the crystals and the implication of that for 16. There are some spoilers for FF5 here, but overall, it's that after the original world you start on, crystals are destroyed, you go to another world, and those crystals are used to seal the void as well. They get destroyed as well. I think that we will see this as an influential point in either the release of a dark new place, similar to the void, or the transformation of the world will take place and return it back to what it was, which is what ends up happening at FF5. So for those who need a brief explanation, when you return from the second world, you seem like you're home, but what it is it's the first 2 worlds combined back into one, which is what happened at the beginning of the lore for the game, is it was just one world, and it was split in half to seal the void in between. So I'm thinking we might get something sort of like that here as well. Number 7. The environments. We've seen woods, plains, deserts, canyons, fields, volcanoes, and a bit of mountain-related terrain so far. But none of it is part of the Ash content. Because it is so blight-laden, I'm expecting Ash to be a completely different experience than the Storm content. It won't necessarily be the same as playing 2 separate games in terms of thinking about this, but as the difference, but closer to something like the combat in the DLC for FF15, where you have a different approach to combat based on which player you are playing as. The comparison would essentially be playing as Noctis versus playing as Prompto. Would be like, but in terms of how you view the environments of Storm and Ash. Part of the same world, for sure, but it's contrasting enough that you know something different's going on. I also expect a stage or 2 that is based more around the ancient and futuristic fusion that is Fallen architecture. There may even be a slightly smaller explorable zone that is pure Fallen technology. And I would expect that would, if that appears, not as a stage, but as like an in-between, that it will be the end of the game. It won't be something we see in the first half at all. Because that would be pretty out there. And I think for what they've shown so far, they're trying to keep it grounded in the world, but we sense that it might not stay that way. So the last little bit of my expectations, and obviously there's other things we could talk about, is combat. And I'm expecting combat to be absolutely crazy. And this is where I expect the job reference to FF5 coming in. Different aspects of the icon abilities could correspond to parts of the old FF5 job system. An example of this would be having some ranged abilities on Ramuh or Bahamut being slightly more akin to the Archer, where you're killing enemies with ranged abilities far more than just the magic spells that you get on your triangle button. Whereas Phoenix and Garuda seem to have more of a close-range ninja thief speed thing going on with a base magic spell attached to it. Status and elemental effects aren't present, but I suspect they have a more tactical form. In action RPGs, position is important, and in particular in relation to what you're fighting and what your actions are. And so position and the ability to put enemies or yourself in a certain position will be the status effects. If any enemy is purely ground-based, he's going to be useless if he's being juggled in the air, because he can't do anything. Or a flying enemy that's been grounded loses its speed advantages. I mean, how many birds, for example, can run really well on the ground? They lose something. They're far better in flight. And that is where I think we'll see the status effects. But it's not the same as the traditional thinking that is, use an antidote when poisoned. Overall, I expect to play each of the icons in battle quite extensively before deciding on what I like the most. But I think that some styles may emerge. And when I talk about styles here, what I mean is your combination of 3 icons will have you as a more defensive stance Clive, a more offensive stance Clive, a ranged Clive, a more stagger-based Clive, and that may change depending on which icons you have equipped. And I think that's going to be kind of a key aspect, is you're going to have your own play style, but the customization that the game allows will make for a very unique experience for everyone, and the content that I make or that others make in the customization will be based around how we want to play. And that may not be comfortable for everyone, and it's not going to necessarily be like the Swiss Army knife either. I think it'll be very unique for everyone. So my playthrough is going to be different than one of your playthroughs. What I get out of my playthrough in the combat is going to be based on how I choose to approach the battles, just as how your version of it will be the same as well in that regard. You know, you're going to have your own unique experience, and you're going to have your own recommendations that you'll want to share. You know, some people may choose to completely ignore using Phoenix as soon as you get the 4th icon that you can equip. When you get the 4th one, some may say bye Garuda, some may say goodbye to whoever comes 3rd, and so on. Like, I think the game is going to give us a ton of choice, and that's great. So, I will have some more FF16 content in the future, including gameplay, lore, a let's play, streams of the game on Twitch, and some of it will be brought to YouTube as well. I'm looking forward to the game, and we'll be playing the demo when it comes out. Probably more than I should. Many people will probably play it more than they should, especially if they're as hyped for the game as I am. It'd be great if you guys would leave a comment below on what you think will be in the game as well as liking and subscribing if you've enjoyed the content so far. And have a great day.